History's first documented military genius wasn't a Roman commander, it wasn't a Greek conqueror, and it certainly wasn't a Napoleonic strategist. More than 3,400 years ago, a pharaoh stood before his generals and made a decision so dangerous that one ambush could have destroyed his entire army. His advisors urged caution. He chose audacity. Marching through a mountain pass so narrow that soldiers and horses could move only in single file, Pharaoh Thutmose III gambled the future of Egypt on a single bold move. What followed at Megiddo became one of the most important military victories in history, a battle that gave birth to the first recorded strategic pincer movement, a maneuver that would influence warfare for thousands of years. This is the story of how one pharaoh transformed a rebellion into an empire. In 1457 BCE, Egypt stood at a turning point. For over 2 decades, the kingdom had flourished under the rule of Queen Hatshepsut. She was one of the most successful rulers in Egyptian history. Her reign brought prosperity, monumental construction projects, and stability across Egypt's vast territories. But when Hatshepsut died, uncertainty spread across the ancient world. To Egypt's rivals, the transition appeared dangerous. Foreign kings believed Egypt was vulnerable. They believed its military power had weakened, and they believed the new pharaoh, Thutmose III, lacked experience. Across Canaan and Syria, local rulers saw an opportunity. One by one, they abandoned their loyalty to Egypt. Soon, a massive coalition emerged under the leadership of the king of Kadesh. Ancient Egyptian records claim more than 300 rulers and princes joined the uprising. Whether exaggerated or not, the threat was enormous. At the center of the rebellion stood a city that controlled the crossroads of the ancient Near East, Megiddo, a fortress city positioned along vital trade and military routes. Control Megiddo, and you controlled the gateway between Africa and Asia. Lose it, and Egypt's empire could collapse before it truly began. For Thutmose III, there could be no compromise. The rebellion had to be crushed, immediately. The pharaoh responded with extraordinary speed. He assembled one of the most disciplined armies of the Bronze Age. Thousands of infantry, elite archers, experienced officers, and Egypt's most feared weapon, the war chariot. Then began a remarkable military operation. The Egyptian army marched nearly 200 miles from Egypt toward Megiddo. Every soldier required food, every horse required water, every chariot required maintenance. This was not simply a military march, it was a logistical masterpiece. Moving thousands of men through difficult terrain demanded precision and planning. The army had to maintain cohesion while advancing rapidly enough to prevent the rebels from strengthening their defenses. Failure would mean losing the Levant. Success would secure Egypt's future. As Thutmose approached Megiddo, he faced the most important decision of his career. 3 roads led toward Megiddo. 2 were safe, wide enough for armies, easy to defend, predictable. The third route was different, the Aruna Pass, a narrow mountain corridor twisting through rugged terrain. In some places, the path became so restricted that soldiers, horses, and chariots would be forced into a single-file column. The dangers were obvious. If enemy forces discovered the movement and launched an ambush, Egypt's army could be destroyed before it reached the battlefield. Ancient records preserve a remarkable moment, a council of war. Thutmose's generals urged caution. Take the safer roads, they argued. Protect the army, avoid unnecessary risks. But Thutmose saw something else. He understood what every great commander eventually learns. Predictability is weakness. The enemy expected him to choose safety. The coalition had concentrated its attention on the wider approaches. No rational commander, they believed, would risk an entire army inside the Aruna Pass. That assumption became their fatal mistake. Ignoring the advice of his generals, Thutmose ordered the army forward. The march began. Thousands of soldiers disappeared into the mountains. Hour after hour they advanced. Every turn concealed uncertainty. Every ridge could hide waiting enemies. The fate of Egypt rested on whether the gamble would succeed. Then something remarkable happened. No ambush came. No enemy army appeared. The rebels had never imagined anyone would attempt such a maneuver. Thutmose had achieved complete strategic surprise. As dawn illuminated the plains surrounding Megiddo, Egyptian soldiers emerged from the mountains. The coalition leaders were stunned. The pharaoh had appeared from the impossible direction. Immediately, Egyptian forces seized advantageous terrain overlooking the battlefield. The surprise was devastating. Before the rebels could fully reorganize, Thutmose began preparing his attack. At the heart of his force stood Egypt's technological advantage, the war chariot. Built from lightweight wood and powered by highly trained horses, Egyptian chariots were among the most advanced military machines of the Bronze Age. Fast, mobile, deadly. Each carried skilled archers capable of striking enemy formations while remaining constantly in motion. Against slower infantry formations, they were terrifying. As skirmishes erupted across the plain, Thutmose organized his army into a broad crescent formation. The center advanced directly toward the enemy. Meanwhile, both wings extended outward. The rebels saw an Egyptian attack. What they failed to recognize was a trap unfolding before them. A battlefield innovation that would echo across military history. The Egyptian center engaged first. Its purpose was simple: fix the enemy in place, prevent movement, create confusion. As the coalition focused on the advancing center, the Egyptian wings began moving inward. Slowly, deliberately, methodically, the jaws were closing. The maneuver was brilliant. The center pinned the enemy. The flanks enveloped both sides. The coalition suddenly found itself trapped. Units became separated. Communication collapsed. Commanders lost control. Panic spread through the ranks. Then came the collapse. The coalition army broke. Warriors abandoned weapons. Nobles deserted their positions. Gold-plated chariots were left behind as terrified soldiers fled toward the walls of Megiddo. Ancient accounts describe defenders pulling fleeing warriors over the city walls using ropes because the gates could no longer handle the chaos. Within hours, the rebellion's field army had been destroyed. The Battle of Megiddo was won. More importantly, military history had changed. This battle contains the earliest detailed written description of a strategic pincer movement, a concept later employed by some of history's greatest commanders, including Hannibal Barca. Thousands of years later, military academies still study the same principle: fix, flank, encircle, destroy. The DNA of battlefield strategy had been permanently altered. Yet victory on the battlefield did not end the campaign. Egyptian troops paused to collect treasure abandoned by the fleeing coalition. That delay allowed many rebel leaders to escape inside Megiddo. The city would not fall easily. Thutmose ordered a siege. For 7 months, Egyptian forces surrounded the fortress. Supply routes were cut. Defensive works were built. The defenders slowly weakened. Food dwindled. Morale collapsed. Eventually, the city surrendered. What happened next demonstrated another dimension of Thutmose's genius. Instead of annihilating the defeated rulers, he integrated them into Egypt's imperial system. Local elites retained influence under Egyptian supervision. Their heirs were often educated in Egypt itself. Future enemies became future allies. This strategy transformed conquest into stability, and stability into empire. The victory at Megiddo marked the beginning of Egypt's greatest age of expansion. Over the following years, Thutmose III launched campaign after campaign. Egyptian influence spread deeper into the Levant and Syria than ever before. Trade flourished. Wealth poured into Egypt. Political influence expanded across continents. Many historians regard Thutmose III as Egypt's greatest military commander. Not because he fought the most battles, but because he understood something larger than battle itself. Victory is not merely about defeating enemies. It is about creating systems that endure. Megiddo demonstrated the power of logistics, the value of surprise, the importance of maneuver, and the strategic advantage of integrating conquered peoples rather than simply destroying them. The foundations of empire were laid not by brute force alone, but by intelligence, planning, and audacity. On the plains of Megiddo, one decision changed history. A pharaoh rejected caution. An army marched through the impossible. A rebellion collapsed. An empire was secured. And the first recorded strategic pincer movement entered the military playbook forever. More than 3 millennia later, commanders still study the principles demonstrated by Thutmose III, proof that some ideas are timeless. And that history often belongs to those willing to take the greatest risks. The Battle of Megiddo was more than a victory. It was the birth of strategic warfare itself. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe for more untold stories of African military history. Which ancient commander should we cover next? Comment below.